the Mark Twain branch, for those of you who have been to our Mark Twain branch. And she's going to come out right now, and she's going to say hello and welcome, Michelle.
Good evening and welcome to the Hartford Public Library First Reader's Choice Program. This program was designed by you. Our circulation indicated that you wanted Zane, and we were happy to deliver. So thank you for supporting the Hartford Public Library and bringing this wonderful author here. For more than 20 years, Kim Oliver has been an on-air personality for 89.9 WQTQ FM. Her on-air persona as Miss Kim can be heard several times a week, including Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Born in Hartford, Connecticut, Kim followed her passion and commitment to the people and economics of her community and moved into the nonprofit sector to lead an innovative approach to workforce development after working for an insurance corporation. Kim is the site director and program manager of a private public funders collaboration of organizations, including United Way and the Foundation for Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. Kim has a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics from Yale University in New Haven and a Master's of Business Administration from Rensselaer here in Hartford. Also, she is certified Yellow Black Belt and Six Sigma and member of the National Association of Workforce Development Professionals. It is with my great pleasure, on behalf of the Hartford Public Library, to welcome Ms. Kim Oliver to our program tonight.
Thank you. Well, good evening. I'm so excited to make this introduction tonight. And you all know who I'm talking about, but I'm going to do a little bit of a bio before we begin. She is, of course, a New York Times bestselling author, editor, publisher, featured columnist and contributor to Essence magazine, screenwriter, producer, CEO of Planet Zane, recipient of numerous awards and accolades. She, of course, is a daughter of two former educators, an elementary school teacher, and a world-renowned theologian who is also an author of 24 books. Born and raised in Washington, D.C., where she still resides today with her 3 children. By far, she is the most successful African-American erotica writer of all time. And her website, eroticanoir.com, averages 250,000 hits every single month. Please join me in welcoming Zane to the Hartford Public Library.
Right here?
Thank you. So let's you get comfortable here.
Oh, this is very nice.
So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to ask Zane a couple of questions to start the conversation, and then we're going to go ahead and open the floor to all of you, because you guys might have some questions you want to ask Zane yourselves as well. So Zane, I'm going to start off with an easy and obvious question. Why the name Zane?
Actually, that's not an easy question. Believe it or not, when I first started using the name Zane, it was an AOL chat room name.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I would actually become known as Zane. I would have probably picked something else, quite honestly. But now I've been Zane for 15 years, so it's grown on me.
Uh-huh.
But ironically, when I chose the name, I had no idea that it meant God's precious gift. So actually, I'm glad that I picked it after. It's pretty cool having the whole one name thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we love the name. We love the name. I'm sure some children have been born since, and their name is
Actually,
Zane.
yes. I know of at least 4 or 5 babies that have been named after me.
Well, you talked a little bit about AOL. and your first story. Tell us a little bit about that first story and what motivated you to write that first story.
Boredom. Just being perfectly honest. I wrote this story called First Night, which ended up being the first story in the original Sex Chronicles. I thought it was appropriate to make it the first story in the first book. And I sent it to a few people that I had met online. And the next thing you know, I started getting emails from all these people asking to be on my mailing list. And at the time, I didn't even know what that was. And asking me, had I written anything else, and saying it was the hottest thing they ever read. And I thought it was funny, to be quite honest. So I wrote a couple more stories, The Airport and The Seduction, and I put those on my AOL free web space. Figured out how to do that. And within 3 weeks, I had about 8,000 hits on it.
Wow.
By word of mouth alone before AOL took it down because it was a little bit too hot. But yeah, that's how the whole thing, I was just playing around, just wrote something, had no idea it was erotica. I had never read erotica. I had heard the term erotica, but I had never read any. So that's not what I set out
To do.
I just wrote a story.
So yeah, so talk a little bit about all the folks who they don't know you as well, know some of the bigger messages that you're putting out there, and they do say erotica. That's saying she's just erotica. What do you say to those folks and folks who also are comparing you to E.L. James and some of the other work that's under erotica?
Well, first of all, I've never read E.L. James, so I can't really say how my work compares to that. For me, though, I really send messages in my books. I'm just a very detailed writer, no matter what it is that I'm writing, and sex is a part of life, so I'm very detailed when it comes to that as well. But it's not like I set out to say, oh, I'm going to write these books and have these really high sex scenes. I deal with everything in my books, and most of the time people that make that criticism have not read my books, because anybody that truly reads my books understands that I always have a much deeper message in them.
And speaking of folks who read your books, I was reading one of the beginning parts of your books, acknowledgments to your aunt, I think. And at the time when you were writing it, I think you were saying she was in her 80s.
I'm actually getting ready to give my aunt her 95th birthday party on July 1st. And
that's fantastic.
Is still my biggest fan. On one side of her rocking chair, she has a bunch of religious books and Bibles. On the other side, she has my books.
Love it.
So everybody always laughs when they come over her house.
Now, it's so, and also you also have readers and fans on the other side, younger readers. Does that impact your writing, or something you think about when you're actually writing, that you have this broad range of readers in terms of age?
Well, eventually I'm going to write a young adult series. In fact, I was just talking to someone about that the other day. I really want to write it this year, because I've had the concept for a long time, and nobody's ever done it, but it's a very educational series of books. But as far as what people read, as a mother myself, I feel like if parents don't want them reading particular things, they should make sure that they're not. I have kids ranging from 9 to 25, so I know.
Yeah.
And that's whether they're on the computer, whatever they're doing, what they're watching on TV, all of those things. But I have had many, many mothers tell me that that's the only way they could get their daughters to read.
Well, and I think it's something to that, because when I've read some of your books and stories, seen some of the shows, I always think of strong women, which I absolutely love. And I feel like that's very intentional, because I see the theme across. So talk a little bit about that, strong women.
Well, that is my true purpose, is to try to empower and liberate women across the board. And I do that not just with my books, but I also have a very large group on Facebook called You'll Never Stand Alone, which we have probably 18,000 and 19,000 members right now. It's all female, and it's a female empowerment group where everybody reaches out to each other. We have believe it or not, a prayer line. We have a clothing drive, a toy drive. We help different women that are struggling, and the women communicate with each other about all the different things that are going on in their life.
So say that Facebook page again for everybody.
You'll Never Stand Alone.
You'll Never Stand Alone. So speaking of that, I like reading your advice column. I've been doing that for a while, but having this opportunity, I said, well, let me go brush up a little bit. And I have, and I hear be good to yourself, be safe, be honest. What's some of your favorite advice that you've given to women?
Oh, wow. I think, well, let me just say, first of all, I really kind of started out giving advice. So I've been doing advice much longer than I've had a book out. And I've been the advice columnist for Ebony before, and I've done dozens of articles for Essence. I think the biggest thing that I try to get across to women is that we have to stop inviting drama into our front door and having to take a seat at our table.
Yes.
I think that so many women are so used to toxic relationships that they almost can't understand what a normal relationship is really like. And I even have women tell me that if they feel like something's wrong if a man is not arguing with them or being mean to them, that kind of stuff. And I have a lot of young ladies email me and tell me flat out that their mothers were not a positive role model to them. And so they don't really understand what a healthy relationship is like. But I think the biggest thing I could say is that we cannot allow ourselves to be consumed with chasing after a man. If a man is supposed to be ours, he will become that without having to become your full-time job. You can accomplish so much more when you put a lot of that time and energy into something else. Because at the end of the day, you only have you to rely on. It's good if you have a man in your life. But it is possible to have a man and not have any drama and not have anything like that. Like I tell you, I have a very peaceful, drama-free life, and it's because I orchestrated it that way. And I mean, and any woman could do that. And I mean, the reason I can respond to this kind of stuff, like right now I probably have 11,000 emails in my box. Now, in my younger years, I was foolish. I made some foolish, choices. And my mother was my wake-up call. Wow. So that's the biggest thing I could tell people. When you know something is not working, walk away from it. Walk away from it. And so many people, they say, oh, I got so much time invested. Yeah. Or I don't know if I can find anyone else. That kind of stuff. So I've been able to help a lot of women really turn their lives around who were very crazy situations, who are now very successful, doing really well, all that stuff. But it began with them having to make a decision and coming to what I call the second. And the second to me is this: when you realize that you will not put up with what you've been dealing with for another second of another minute of another hour or another day. And so many people try to save their friends and family members from that stuff. But I tell them they have to reach that second on their own. Until they reach it, there's nothing you can do for them.
Wow. I love that. The second. I love
it. The second, yeah.
Speaking of walking away, initially when publishers were coming to you, you said no and you decided to walk away. Tell us about that decision.
Well, what happened, again, when I first started writing these stories and even writing books, I never intended to publish any of them. And so several publishers came to me. I don't know how they found me, but they came to me and offered me publishing deals. And they all wanted me to change my writing style. Yeah. And I said, well, no. I said, because I'm really not looking for a publishing deal, and I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. Most people would have said, oh, wow, let me do what they want me to do so I can get this big publishing deal. But not for me. I enjoyed what I was doing, and more importantly, I didn't see anything wrong with it.
So now you're with Simon & Schuster, so
yes.
You probably said, take me as I am.
Oh, they definitely took me as I am. No, what happened, I self-published, and I put out the Sex Chronicles in May of 2000, and I followed it up with Addicted in August of 2000. And in November, the New York Times did an article saying Addicted was the hottest paperback in the country. But people were addicted to trying to find a copy of Addicted.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So then all the publishers came back around again. But for me, with Simon & Schuster, I felt comfortable that they would let me do what I wanted, that they wouldn't try to stifle me in any way. And that's always been the case. So the first year I signed with them, they signed me to 7 contracts for 15 books within a 12-month period.
Wow.
And of course, I, at that point, had already started publishing other people, because I knew immediately that if there had to be other people who were talented who didn't write inside that traditional box. Yeah. So I started doing that, and now I'm up to publishing. I run a full imprint at Simon & Schuster now, and this year we're publishing 60 books alone. So
fantastic. That is fantastic.
So for me, as a child, I really loved books. So for me, the publishing aspect really serves a much deeper purpose, because no matter how many books I write a year, I feel like there are other voices that need to be heard. And as a child, I grew up in a house full of books, but there weren't a lot with characters that looked like me and talked like me. I mean, we had Sounder, we had the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, We had My Daddy Was a Number Runner, which I thought was the dirtiest book back then, and now it's not. You know, we only had certain books. And so I had to grow up reading V.C. Andrews, you know, The Flowers in the Attic, and Judy Blume, and all that kind of stuff like that, which was fine, and Stephen King. But I feel it's very empowering to be able to put all these other voices out there.
So tell me a little more about that personal library that you have now. So you have 60 books you're publishing in 1 year, but what are some other books that, you know, you could share with us that maybe we need to go out and consider for our own libraries?
Well, believe it or not, I read mostly self-help books. I feel like there's always room for improvement. A lot of books I read are already stuff that I know, but it just kind of reinforces stuff that I already know. A great book is The Blessings of Brokenness by Dr. Charles Stanley. I recommend The Value in the Valley by Iyanla Vanzant to all the women. I think every woman should read that. So I read a lot of self-help books and a lot of business books. Because that's one thing. A lot of people say, oh, how is she doing all this? I actually have a business background. So it wasn't like, oh, they just decided to give me an imprint, you know, not know if I knew what I was doing or anything like that. I actually do
have the business
business background to back it up, yeah.
So speaking of which, because of that, I think you've been able to really move your characters off of the page and onto the screen. So tell me, what does it mean to be able to see some of these characters that, you know, you wrote and to see them come alive on the small and big screens? I'll
be honest with you, the first time when we first started shooting Zane Sex Chronicles, when I showed up on the set, I was overwhelmed. I saw all this, and it's funny because when I showed up on my set, I didn't even tell people I was Zane at first. I walk in and I see I had like an 80-something member crew, you know, I had all this stuff going on, and then my line producer finally walks up and says, "Hey Zane," and everybody's like stopping and looking like, oh yeah. But to me, the first time we did a first scene, it was amazing when I realized that no matter what I wrote, people would actually do it. Yeah. So it was interesting. Yeah, it was interesting to see it come to life. And of course, I love it. It's a totally different process because as a writer, when I'm writing books or writing scripts, everything is a very solitary process. Yeah. As the executive producer of a show, I'm responsible for, on any given day, 150 people. So it was totally different. Yeah. You know, it's so funny because I always had them set me up a desk for me to write, which is a joke because they're like, she's not going to write anything. But I always attempt to say, I'm going to, you know, work. Yeah.
Well, and speaking of which, you know, you and I were talking a little bit earlier about Addicted and the fact that's coming to the big screen that we're all excited about. Yeah. And, I mean, that book has been phenomenal. I mean, so many people, they hear Zane, they go, "Ooh, Addicted. I gotta read Addicted." Yeah. So what is it about that particular story going to the big screen?
What do I feel about it?
Yeah, about that story in particular.
Well, that was my first novel, so it's good to see it go to the screen. It's so funny because Addicted, believe it or not, is the one book I would like to write over.
Really?
And I may do something crazy like that. I'm always known for doing crazy stuff, so don't be surprised if I do that. You know, like I put the commercials and Shame on It All, and I'm always known for doing crazy stuff, so I might just rewrite the book. But I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting for us. We'll look out for Addicted rewritten, I guess.
Yeah, the rewrite, the remix.
The remix, yeah. I like that, the remix.
Yeah.
So I was one of many this weekend who decided to look at the new series, Zane's The Jump Off, on Cinemax. So it was this Friday. Hopefully you guys saw it. And loved it. Loved seeing people of all different colors on the screen. So tell us a little bit about this series and how it's a little different than Zane's Sex Chronicles.
Well, with Zane's Sex Chronicles, what happened originally, Cinemax wanted to do the Sex Chronicles book, the short stories, as a series. When they called me in there, that's what it was all about. But when I ended up having a long lunch with them and they heard my life story, they were like, well, we'd rather it be about you. Because I literally led a double life for 5 years. My parents, nobody knew I was Zane. Nobody. So when they heard that story, they were like, oh, we've got to do this about you. You know, we've got to see how you pulled that off. So the character on the show was really about 85% the real me.
Wow.
And So I knew that before the second season aired, after I did the second season, because I didn't want to write my character too far away from who I really was, and I didn't want to continue revealing my life. So I knew before the second season aired that I really didn't want to do a third season.
Yeah.
So, and I made that known to the network, and they were like, well, you know we want you to. And so when it came around after the season ended, they were like, well, you sure? And I said, yeah, and I don't want to do it. So they came back a few months later and said, well, what do you want to do? And I thought about the fact that there has never been a series that totally focused on men of color. And that people were still talking about the best man and the Wood and the brothers and that kind of stuff, because that was a whole area that wasn't being covered. And I was thinking like a man long before Steve put out the book. Because I write male characters all the time. Yeah. So I said, I'm going to do a show about men. And also it took it so far away from the Sex Chronicles, I didn't want to just do a repeat with another show with women. Right. Didn't really make sense. So with the jump off, I decided to write this show about 5 fraternity brothers who are members of Sigma Omega Kappa fraternity that I made up. And they live in Miami. And in their early to mid-30s, and they're all 5 completely different men. One is a professional football player who is a player, and one is married, and he manages the club. Woody manages the club, but he's currently separated from his wife, who's a pilot, because she feels like he's not doing enough of his degree. Spencer Martinez is the co-host of a radio show called The Other Side of the Pillow with Nandy Carter. Who he's single, but he really has a crush on her, but would never say it. But something's gonna happen that he's gonna,
like I'm getting tidbits about the show,
Gabriel is a financial advisor, and he's married, and he and his wife are what I consider the perfect married couple, what a married couple should be. And then there's a new character who has not entered yet, but he'll be on this upcoming episode, and his name is Ernest, and he has a lot. I don't want to tell too much of the show, but y'all. So, the whole thing is I always start out stuff one way and it goes a completely different direction. By episode 5, people will be like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen next week? I was crying, I'm upset, I can't believe that happened to him, all that kind of stuff. And by the end of the cliffhanger is going to piss everybody off. I'm just warning y'all right now, do not email me. I had to end the season somewhere. And I do have the cliffhanger is a cliffhanger. So people are going to really be upset because they're going to want to know what happened.
See, I know I'm excited. It's already my DVR as one of my series to follow. And
but let me go back for a minute and tell everybody the cast of Addicted, because we did finish filming right before Thanksgiving. We're just waiting on a release date. But the cast of Addicted is, and for those of you familiar with the book, I'll say the character names as well. Tasha Smith is playing Dr. Marcellus Spencer. Sharon Leal is playing Zoe Renard. Boris Kojo is playing, is playing Jason Renard. Tyson Beckford is playing Tyson. Easy. He had to change his name. William Levi, who many of you might know from Dancing with the Stars and the telenovelas, and the M&M's commercial when he says, I love chocolate. Y'all know who that is? Yeah, the Cuban guy. Yeah, he's playing Quentin. And Kat Graham from the Vampire Diaries is playing Diamond. And we have to have a really good cast, so I'm excited about it.
Very good. So soon to be released.
Soon to be released. We're done. It's cut, so just waiting for a release date.
Okay. So it sounds like we will all be there. We definitely will all be
there. Definitely go see it.
So, in addition to we talked about the books, small screen, big screen, you still have such a presence on the internet. I love your site.
People wondering how I do it.
I know. So, because that was going to be our question is, do you see yourself continuing? You have so much going on because like I said, your site is a great site.
Well, I actually enjoy connecting with people. And it's not like I'm just sitting there and that's all I'm doing. And in the beginning, when I first started writing, I was actually like in the chat room, but I would be writing at the same time. So it's still kind of the same thing, since I'm always, on my computer a lot, writing. I just go back and forth, and it just gives me a mental break. Yeah. Sometimes when I need it.
So as you're connecting with folks and your Zaniacs, so what role do they play as you're working on your writing, other projects? Are you thinking about those Zaniacs?
Actually, there are several people that I have an ongoing kind of like mentorship with or life coach relationship with. So yeah, and then just in general, it's inspiring. It's upsetting sometimes because a lot of my emails are very depressing. But it gives me an indicator of what people are going through and what topics and stuff are really things that need to be discussed.
That's fantastic. So you're always relevant because you're connected to folks knowing exactly what the pulse is.
Yeah, it's just so many people that are just so upset and lost and going through a lot.
Yeah.
And it also keeps me balanced and humbled, to be quite honest, because every day when I read those emails, it lets me know that I'm truly blessed and that things could be a lot worse because there's so many people that are going through, unimaginable things.
Definitely. Well, I read also that, one of your favorite mottos is live life to its fullest while you still have a life to live.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you?
Do y'all really want to know? Well, of course, I'm still doing more books. I'm actually going to write and direct a film, another movie. I am writing 3 other screenplays for other people. Working on some other television shows, doing a lot, all of that kind of stuff. But one thing I'm about to do is I got together with 2 friends of mine who are doctors, and I am about to launch the pill for women.
Ooh.
By Mother's Day. It's called Desirel, like desire and L for women, so female desire. So Desirel by Zane, I am doing that. And one reason why, and I'll be honest with you, people approach me all the time about doing stuff, but the reason that I think this is important is because one other topic that I do get a lot of emails from about are women who have lost their sex drive. So this is all natural stuff, but it's in the right combination to improve all of that. Because I do get that all the time from women who just don't understand why they just don't have their desire anymore.
It's another way of empowering women.
Another
right?
way, yeah.
Empowering women. Okay, well, great. Well, at this time, I'm going to go ahead. I think I see Michelle somewhere. If you have a question for Zane, see Michelle. You raise your hand.
2 questions? Okay, I feel better now.
You gotta give a reason to come back to Hartford, folks. So Michelle's going to go ahead, and when she comes over, she'll get the mics to you guys, and you can ask Zane a question. I think we're just getting another mic. We're just working on the mic. We have a lot of questions. Okay.
You talked about publishing other authors. I want to know if those other authors are writing erotica as well, or are they all over the board as far as the topics go?
Her question was, do I only publish erotic writers? Actually, out of over 100 authors, I only have 2 erotic writers, and those are Cairo and Allison Hobbs. Yes, if you have not read them, they make me look like a Girl Scout, I'm telling you. Allison is up to book like 21 already, and Cairo's like on 9 or 10. But those are the only 2 erotica writers that I publish. Everything else, I have a very diverse imprint. I publish everything, fiction and nonfiction, and all genres across the board. I'm actually getting ready to do the memoir for Marion Barry. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
very nice.
And I have Omar Tyree writing that, so yeah.
Stuff to look forward to.
Thank you. Welcome to Hartford.
Thank you.
My name is Naima. I'm an author myself. I'll be published at the end of the month, and I'm also an editor for my cousin's publishing company. She wrote a book called Digmatized 2 years ago and was wondering if you'd heard of it. It's erotica.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've heard the word digmatized. I don't know if I've heard it from a book as a book title or not. So.
Okay. And I have a question. It's for me as well. I write erotica, although I haven't published it. My book that I'm coming out with is something totally different. But she wants to know how to go about marketing and promoting erotica, because there's so many barriers that she keeps facing, lots of judgment, lots of criticism. So what advice do you have as far as getting the message out there and knowing that sex is actually okay and you can still be of the Lord?
Well, first of all, any writer has to have thick skin.
Thank you.
And trust me, criticism and controversy and all of that stuff you just named follows me every day of my life. And you know what? It goes in one ear and out the other, or one eye and out the other. So with that being said, she just really has to find her voice. And what I mean by that is, one thing I notice that a lot of writers do this, a mistake, and if anybody goes on my Facebook page, they'll notice one thing. They might think it's strange. I hardly ever mention my books. And so those of you on my page know that. You've heard some people like, oh, Zane, I didn't know you had a new book out. No, but really, I hardly ever talk about my books. And the reason why, that's not why I'm really on there. And I guess for me, because I started out just running my mouth on the internet, I still kind of do that. And I did that prior to even thinking about becoming a published writer. And I'm saying that just to say, one thing I always tell my authors is this: one book is one book. You have to get people who know you, who want to know you, who think you have something important to say, so they'll be willing to buy your book to see what it's about. Because the way that I am on Facebook is the same way I am right now, the same way I am, this is just me. And so an author, what I'm basically saying is, a writer is something you do by yourself. An author is a personality. Is what I'm pretty much saying. So I don't know what she's doing to try to promote her book, but trust me, I know for a fact there are millions of people that read erotica, because I'm published in several different languages, and I've sold, millions of books. So there are people out there that will read it. And then she just also needs to make sure that her work is top notch. I haven't read it, so I can't speak on it. But I do know that there are a lot of writers that put books out that could use some help. Right. And that's what I do with my authors. Like, if I publish an author and I notice that they're not coachable, then that's pretty much, it. I really deal with coachable authors, which is why Allison's on book, 21. And whenever she speaks, she always talks about how I'm the reason that she is writing the way that she writes, and writes at the pace that she writes. So it's a craft, and a lot of people don't really understand that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, welcome. I have a 13-year-old granddaughter whose reading level is post-high school. It's her daughter, actually. And we're all avid readers, and it is so difficult to find material for her that doesn't have vampires and werewolves. I mean, the writing for young adults now is so dark. I mean, there's a place for that. Stephen King is like, I'm his #1 fan. You know what I mean? But, I mean, it's really difficult. And you mentioned that you're writing a young adult series, so I have hope. But could you suggest any other authors, women particularly of color, who are writing for young adults that has minimal sexual content?
Rashonda Tate Billingsley. I don't know what her series is called.
Thank you.
But Rashonda has a young adult series. I think Victoria Christopher Murray has a young adult series. My daughter was reading, I think it's called Drama High. I don't know what the lady's name was, but my daughter read that when she was that age. So there are books of that. I would just really look around, and like you just asked me, I do know that those three exist. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Zane.
Hi.
Love your books, but I have a question. I don't know which book it was. I read Afterburn and Seekers.
The Heat Seekers.
Heat Seekers. I read both of them years ago. One of them, and I don't remember which one, it ends with you believing that there's a sequel. Can you give me the sequel, please?
Believe it or not, that is that, and I'm not just saying this, that is actually the book that I'm writing right now.
I so appreciate that, because I've been waiting.
And it's so funny because for me, that's a very, not a difficult book for me, but it's with that book, I went really deep, and I had to be in a certain place to go that deep, although I go there with every book. But for me, I can't just write something on command. When I write, I'm really feeling whatever I'm writing. And that's another mistake that some writers write. They just, say, okay, I'm going to write this book about something. My agent, it's like sometimes I'm all over the place. I'll start, with Afterburn. I actually started that. I wrote the first half of it, and I threw it aside for like 3 years. And then I went back and finished it. So, yeah. But I am writing that book now, though. You're welcome. And it's called Solitaire, by the way. Hi.
I have a question for you. You said that you faced a lot of criticism writing your book.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids been doing the same thing, being the fact that they were a child of Zane? Like,
You know, it's funny because I still kind of live a double life. Most people don't know that my kids are my kids. So, I mean, like my daughter's in college now. I think it may be 5 students on campus that might know that I'm her mother. Yeah, so no, not really for that reason. Although my oldest son now is writing, he has the first story in Z-Rated called Come See a Man About a Horse. Yeah, but he's 25, so he can, do that. And he's finishing up his first novel, which is called The Angle of the Dangle. Don't ask. But, yeah. Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I still up until, it's so funny because I can be like a chameleon because last year I was the Cub Scout leader. So, I mean, I've been everything from PTA president, I'm on the board of directors for a Christian Academy. I do all kinds of stuff, but not as Zane. So I still lead a very double life.
Hi, Zane. Thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure to
look
listen
this
to
way
you.
because I don't see y'all over
I
there.
have kind of like a twofer. The first one, when I think about some of our great literaries, Zora Neale Hurston, Toni Morrison, and even though that was a different time, the themes of sexuality and sensuality were very subtle. So you spoke to this a little bit, but how did you find that courage to be just so much more open when even in our culture today, it's difficult to talk about sex so openly? So that's one question. And then my other, I know that you've inspired so many writers, but who are those writers that have really inspired you?
Well, for your first question, to me, I never saw anything wrong with what I was doing. And maybe it is because I'm a preacher's kid. I don't know, but I never saw anything wrong with what I was writing. And it's just I write the way I see stuff, and that's not just the sex; it's everything. It's the way I visualize stuff. I'm a very visual writer, so it's not like I'm setting out to write these elaborate sex scenes. And it's funny because you could take the sex scenes out of most of my books and you would still have a full story. It's just that people, I don't know about y'all, but I know my parents had sex for me to get here. I don't know. by a show of hands, it's like, it's a natural thing. As far as writers who inspire me, I named the ones earlier that I read as a child. That's who really inspired me as a child. Now I'm really inspired by a lot of the authors that I publish, which is why I publish them. I feel like I have some really prolific, great writers, and so they are my inspiration. And it's also because I read every book I publish, so that's what I read the most as well.
Hi, my name is Tamika. I read your Purple Panties, and I feel like you should come out with more lesbian books for...
Did you read the second one?
Yeah, I read both.
Okay.
But that's it. I read every book you read, every book you put out. I read every book, but you only have 2 for us, and I feel kind of left out.
Well, have you read my lesbian writers?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah, and I think you should ask Allison Hobbs to do a lesbian book too.
Okay. She was in one of the Purple Panties. Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering if you'd speak to the issue of female shame about reading romance, because a lot of women are afraid to admit that they like romance, that they like erotica, and you should read some real literature instead. Whereas a lot of books with men's themes of violence and crime and stuff are considered real literature.
Right.
Have you come up against that a lot? And has anybody tried to persuade you to write real literature?
It's so funny. Every once in a blue moon, I get an email which I find amusing, and it generally goes something like, "I have read 10 of your books, and you're wasting your talent." And just to prove my point, I gave them to 2 of my friends, and they read them, and they said the same thing. And I'm like, okay, anybody to try to tell a grown person what they should enjoy. basically, because they don't say the same thing. What's interesting, I noticed they say that about books, but some of the highest grossing films that come out every year are romance. Like the Nicholas Sparks, which are based on books, that kind of stuff. Some of the biggest films are romance movies, but yet when it comes to books, people make that comment. Yes. I see there's some questions.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, Shay. It's me, Angela. So I was just wondering, how many books you've been wrote? How many books came out?
I currently have, I believe it's 31 books, and 32 and 33 are already written. So I'm working on 34. I have 30, I think 31 are out. Yeah, 31. Did any of you read the ebook that I wrote for Christmas? Everything Fades Away?
I just downloaded it.
No, y'all have read it? Y'all are missing something. Y'all better go home and read that. It's only an ebook. It's called Everything Fades Away. And I scared Allison Hobbs with that one, by the way. Yeah.
Yes, Shane. Zane. I know. Sorry, I made a mistake. I was stressed out. What I'm interested in is you've had great success, and I deal with dreams, and I'm interested in, like, what are your dreams? You got a lot of stuff, I'm sure, but what are the dreams that you have for yourself now? Dream chaser number one.
Are you saying dreams as far as like my goals in life, or dreams that I dream? Oh, okay. The reason I was laughing when you said dreams is because I recently had a sleep study done because I don't sleep well. And the doctor told me before he even did it, because he had already talked to my primary care physician, he said, I already know what the problem is. It has nothing to do with physical anything. It's you. So they put me under, and I went, spent the night at the sleep clinic. And believe it or not, they showed me I dream on average of 4 times more than the average person. And that's why I don't sleep, because my body's trying to shut it, but my mind doesn't shut down. So I dream. Honestly, more stuff happens to me at night when I'm supposed to be asleep than happens to me during the day. So that's why I was laughing about that. As far as what my dreams are, I'm just really challenge-driven, and I want to continue doing television and continue doing film because I love it. I never really feel, one reason why I can do everything I'm doing, because I don't really feel like I'm working. This is like, I'm almost like a kid in a candy store. The only thing I hate is the paperwork part. I hate the paperwork part. But outside of that, I love it. I want to just continue finding ways to make a difference in people's lives, to be honest with you. That's very important to me. And I don't know which direction goes in. I have a lot of thoughts about that and things I plan to bring to fruition. But I will say this, I'm a huge dreamer. But I generally do everything I say I'm going to do.
Hi, Zane. I guess I'm asking for advice. I'm also a publisher. I have 2 books that I've published. The first one is my own, and I have my first novel coming out this year. And at the same time, I'm living a double life because I also have a full-time corporate job. And I feel like that takes so much of my energy and my time, and just trying to put this novel out, it takes away from my creativeness. What advice would you give to someone who can't do it full time yet, and that's what my dream is to be able to write and publish and write my scripts and TV movies and all those things. How did you get through the beginning? Because you said you didn't even want to do it; it just kind of fell in your lap. I want to do it. What advice would you give to someone like me?
Well, what you have to do, because I also was in corporate America when I first started, I had a very stressful corporate job. And one thing that I knew, I told myself that if I could go and work 8 hours a day for someone else, I could come home and work 4 hours a day for myself. So I actually had that dedicated time period in order to do that. You just have to, it almost has to be, you have to discipline yourself and make it your part-time job. So every day, do something towards, writing or publishing or that kind of stuff. And I don't know if you're doing that or not. You may be doing that, but it's just, it's a process. But yes, I definitely lived that way for a while. And for me, I actually did it when I had, to be honest with you, I had already made over $1 million. I just didn't want to tell my parents I was Zane. So I was still going to work every day. And then I finally said, you know, this is ridiculous. I said, I'm going to have to tell them the truth. I said, because if I quit my job, I can still pay all my bills and take care of the kids and do everything. They're going to think like I'm cooking or selling drugs or something. So I said, because I had a really good job, I said, I can't just quit and just act like, oh, you know, I'm just not working anymore. So I finally, you know, told them, but it was really ridiculous. I really did. I kept going to work even though I had made more than $1 million selling books. Sounds crazy, but I did. Yes.
Hi, Zane. Speaking on you're telling your family that you were Zane, what was their response?
Well, what had happened about a year before I told them, my parents and I were on our way somewhere out of town, and I joked with them in the car, and I just said, you know, I'm thinking about writing a book and writing it under another name. And, you know, they were just like, well, why would you do that? And I said, well, just thinking about it. So what happened, I finally decided to I told my mother first. We had gone out shopping or something. And I told her, I said, you remember when I was talking about, you know, possibly writing a book under another name? And she said, yeah, and I just started laughing. She said, you did it, didn't you? And I said, yeah. And so I said, stop by this drugstore up here. So I ran in there, and I got an Essence magazine, and I opened it up, and at the time I had 3 out of 5 of the bestsellers. So I said, you see this Zane person? I was like, that's, you know, me. So she was like, what? I was like, that's me, you know. And she was like, oh, wow. So she dropped me off at home, and it was my dream. Then I thought about, oh, my gosh, she's going to want to come in my house and see a book. Because what happened, I had everything hidden. Like, even if you come to my house now, you would not know that I was Zane. You would have to look really deep. Like, I don't have, like, my NAACP award, like, on display, like, as soon as you walk in the door. So, I mean, you have to look deep to find out that I'm Zane. So I didn't have any, you know, so my mother said, well, I want to see one of the books. And I was like, oh, my goodness. So she sat down on the living room couch. I was like, why won't she just leave? So I finally went upstairs, and I picked up the Sex Chronicles and started flipping through the table of contents, and I was like, oh, no. You know, I can't give her this one. And so finally I went down and I gave her a copy of Addicted. And I just said, don't read it here. I said, you know, take it home and look at it. And so she went home. She could not wait to run home and tell my daddy. And, I mean, honestly, they have been really cool about it. They were just like, you know, my mother said, why did you feel like you couldn't tell us? I never, you know, professed to be a virgin, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And it's so funny now because my mother's 85, and now she's just Zane's mother now. When she goes to her sorority meetings and her outings and all that stuff, it's like she's Zane's mother now. You know, and so and people want her to call me so they can say hi on the phone and all that stuff. So they've been really cool about it, yeah. And then my dad read Nervous, and I got nervous. When my mother told me, she was like, your daddy read Nervous. I was like, oh, no. Yeah.
It's on? Oh. Hi, Zane. I'm currently reading your book, Make It Last Forever, The Do's and Don'ts. This is, I think, your new book.
It's by Keith Sweat, but I published it, yeah.
Did you guys, like, is it interesting sitting down with him? Because I love his music, and I just didn't think he was going to come out with a book because it's something like the Steve Harvey book, but not really. But it's really interesting.
Well, you know,
and it's really true, too.
I have known Keith for many, many years, and I don't know if you're aware that he's the biggest urban nighttime radio show host. Yeah. And it's I don't know if it's listed, but you can go to sweathotel.com. He's in 53 markets, so it's on his site. But ironically, Steve Harvey is the one that told Keith, I know Steve Harvey very well, he's the one that told Keith he should write the book. And it's different in that it's geared towards men and women. And Keith actually, while Steve does the Strawberry Letter and stuff, Keith actually has like 3 hours a night where he deals with relationship issues. He has like the maintenance man hour, the confession hour, and I forgot what the other one is. So a lot of that is pulled from actual topics that he's done on his show and what he's learned, you know, dealt with over the years. Thank you.
Hi,
Yes.
I just wanted to know, where'd you come up with the name Zane? Where does it come from?
I addressed that earlier, but I just pulled it out of thin air, and I didn't know that that was going to be my name, but it means God's precious gift. Yes. This someone up here? This one up here? Oh, I don't need a mic. Oh, okay. I'm actually writing my second nonfiction book. I don't know how many people have read my first one, called Dear G-Spot, Straight Talk About Love, Sex, and Relationships. I am, however, writing another book that deals specifically with just life issues, period, though I am actually writing that now. Yes.
All right, we have time for one more question. Anybody? We got to get a mic to you. Hold on 1 second.
Thank you. Oh my God, I just left class. I'm so excited to meet you. I've heard so many good things about you. I'm not sure if it was asked already, but I have an aunt. She's also an author. She's from Hartford, but she moved down to Atlanta. Her name is Mary Carr Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
She has a book out called Two Sisters Torn. What would your advice be for her coming out with her first book and maybe not having as much publicity as you do?
Well, the internet is, again, the most powerful tool of all. And it's much, much easier now than when I first started. When I started this, there was no Facebook, no MySpace, no Black Planet, none of that. I mean, none of that existed when I first started. Everybody had to have their own dedicated, website. And so there's so many different groups, and she can Skype with book clubs. She just has to really get creative, but the technology is just amazing now. Where she needs to Skype with different book clubs, for example, like I just said, and do Twitter chats. And people have to, if you're going to be a writer in today's age, you really have to know how to do social media. You really, really do. And if you don't have anyone that, if they're not good at that, then they should get somebody to do it. Like she was talking about Keith's book, I actually have my assistant doing his stuff. And yeah, Zane's right-hand chick, but he can't keep her forever. I said, now she got to come back to work. I told her this morning she dropped me off at the train station. Yeah, don't get too comfortable. I know he's cuter than me to her. But that's what she needs to do, really explore the whole social networking.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. We're done. We've got, because I know a lot of you would like some books, get some books, and get Zane to sign a few books, if that's okay. So go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.